Welcome to the Own Your Life podcast, where our goal is to help bring hope, healing, and peace by sharing our experiences and inspiring you to own your life.
Hey everybody, I want to let you know about an ebook that I wrote called Winning at All Costs. It tells about how earlier in my life, I chose to win at my career above all else and damage the relationships that I had in my life, including my relationship with my wife and my son. It also tells about how I've turned it all around and how I learned to focus on what I value most in my life. You can get your copy now at ownyourlifeco.com/ebooks and on amazon.com. You won't want to miss this opportunity. Check it out today. And remember, own your life because your life is your responsibility.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Own Your Life podcast. I just want to start off and say thank you to everybody who has sent us nice words and just comforted us in this time that we're grieving the loss of our Haas. And also just, thank you guys for all your support. We just really appreciate it. It is Matt's birthday today that we are recording this. This is on the 19th of December, and my birthday is actually on Christmas. So we've got a lot of good things coming up, a lot of celebrations. So just wanted to mention that. Happy birthday, Matt. So glad that you wanted to record a podcast on your birthday. I know we could be doing tons of other things, but this is, something that you wanted to do, and that's awesome. So today we're going to be talking about the best gift of all. So, and this is also episode 25, which is kind of funny because, Christmas is the 25th, and we're going to be talking about gifts today, but not your traditional gifts that you were thinking about. So I'll let Matt give a quick intro here.
Yeah, these are kind of, special to us just because we finally figured out a few of these gifts, a while back. We actually read StrengthsFinder 2.0, and Ashley's going to kind of dig into that a little bit. But, knowing your gifts, strengths, and talents kind of gives you an edge over a lot of people in life. And I think that was the biggest thing for this. Is the reason why we wanted to point this out is because a lot of people are walking around in everyday life and they don't know that they have their gifts, strengths, and talents that they use on an everyday basis. And it really does change everything when you can really fall into, maybe a job or a business or whatever it is that you want to do, where you can use your gifts, strengths, and talents every single day. And it'll change everything with your life because you're actually going to enjoy what you do every single day versus dreading what you do every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just want to read real quick. So this is out of StrengthsFinder 2.0. Tom Rath, Rath, is the author. It's from Gallup. That company does a lot of testing like this. So it does have a test. If you do buy the book, you can actually take the test with the code they give you, which is what we've done. And at the front inside cover of the book, it says, "Do you have an opportunity to use your strengths every day? Chances are you don't. All too often, our natural talents go untapped. From the cradle to the cubicle, we devote more time to fixing our shortcomings than to developing our strengths." And that couldn't be more true. Like Matt had said, it's going to affect your everyday life, whether you're operating out of your strengths or not. I feel like we spend a lot of time focusing on our weaknesses and trying to change them or reverse them. And sometimes that's not how it's meant to be, because you can't be strong in every single area of your life. It's just not possible. Like in every single, strength that you want, you can't have everything. There are going to be places that you are weaker in than others. And I think it's important to develop your strengths because those get neglected a lot. Or people think that when they do find out that what their strengths are, that's it. There is no developing it. It is what it is. That's what I'm, maybe good at or okay at and whatever. And that's not the truth. You can develop those strengths and talents and make them even better than they already are, and something that you really enjoy. And I feel like, not living out your strengths and talents can actually make you feel lost. Maybe not having purpose. If you're somebody who's questioning, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to do on this earth? Maybe you're not living out your strengths and talents, and that could be why you feel that way. Do you feel like you are living a life out of somebody else's wants and needs for your life than what you actually want and need? And a lot of this can come from parents putting pressure on their kids to, hey, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be a doctor, you need to do, you need to be a scientist when you grow up, or you need to do this, instead of following maybe what your real strengths are and passions are. And I think that, can lead you to a life of misery because you are trying to make somebody else happy, which we've talked about this so many times. You cannot make somebody else happy. You cannot control somebody else's emotions, and how, they think and feel about you. That's why it's important to own your life, not to own somebody else's life, because we need to focus on what we can control and what we can do. And part of that is developing your strengths and talents and living the life that you want. And I think that that's so important because if we're just, stuck in a job or something that we hate, but we're doing it because somebody else told us, hey, you'd be a good blah, blah, blah. And you're doing that profession and now you're upset. It might be because you're not even operating out of your strengths. Whereas maybe if you were, you'd be so much more happy and fulfilled with life because you're actually operating out of what you're supposed to be operating out of. I feel like, living with our weaknesses, maybe that being the forefront is not a good idea. Because we're going to have weaknesses in a lot of different things. But I think that focusing on the strengths is definitely a better way to go about it.
Yeah, for sure. And so we're going to dive into each one of our strengths and kind of talk about them. Ash and I have some ones that coexist, which sometimes makes it difficult. And then other ones that we don't have, we don't understand the other one as much, or we used to not understand, I should say. And now that we actually understand those gifts and strengths, now we kind of let each other operate out of those. And sometimes our strengths kind of cross paths. So my top 5 strengths are futuristic, focus, relator, strategic, and competition. So I'm going to go down to the bottom one here as far as that's concerned and talk about competition first. Ashley and I have the same one of that one, and the competition never ceases in our household. She loves to win, sometimes at all costs, and sometimes my competition wears out before her competition, so she ends up winning in that area too because she just wears me down. But overall, I think competition can be a great strength, but it can also be a great weakness as well, because sometimes with competition, you can run so hard and actually it can hurt you in the sense of not knowing when to let something go. Sometimes we hang on to stuff for so long. We think it's going to work. We think it's going to end up being beneficial to us. And we, like, oh, I'm just going to outwork it. It'll be fine. It'll eventually work out. And then it ends up not working out. And you're like, I don't understand. I put all my all into that. I focused so hard on it and I put everything I had on the line for that and just didn't work out. Well, sometimes with that competition strength, it actually ends up being a weakness in that area. And one thing that I kind of think about is that rowing a boat doesn't help if you're rowing it so hard in the wrong direction. And I think that sometimes we don't know that we're heading in the wrong direction with competition, and you can actually end up just rowing in the wrong direction and never getting to that point of what you really want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's great. And so just to go over mine real quick, and we'll go back and forth with both of ours. But so my top 5 are responsibility, futuristic, competition, input, and relator. And so the 3 that Matt and I share are competition, futuristic, and relator. And yeah, like Matt said, that our strengths to an extreme can actually be weaknesses. So, competition can also be very detrimental if you are so stuck in the comparison game that you are, kind of crippling yourself to where you can't even do anything anymore because you're so distraught over what you do or don't have compared to somebody else. I feel like the way that competition has helped me a lot is it's helped me be better. And sometimes it's competing with myself. It's not always competing with somebody else. And I feel like that's helped me be better in a lot of different things, especially in working out, because that's what just popped into my head right now is, wanting to lift either, more weight or more reps, something like that than what I did the last time, and to build upon that. So I think that's a way that I've used competition to, build myself and as a strength and to keep it healthy. Now, all of these, it's almost like food, everything in moderation. If you are acting extreme with your strengths, they're probably going to turn into weaknesses because you're going to turn off a lot of people around you, and you might, do something detrimental to yourself in the process. So I think it's important to know that there's two sides to it, but competition for sure has also, it's also hindered me with Matt because I've tried to compete against him in things that I wasn't meant to compete with him in. And that's been something I've had to learn over the years that we've been together, that's, I don't have to compete with him over everything. We're a team. We're not rivals, we're not supposed to compete against each other on certain things. So, obviously if we have like a game night or something, that's totally different. That's all in fun. But I feel like, that's something that, you just have to watch with, whatever your strength is. And I know with futuristic, we've talked about this multiple times, that Matt and I can get so futuristic, which can be a really good thing because we have vision and we can see something, that's not there yet and how we can potentially, make that happen. And that's been really cool to be able, to dream together and to plan together. But that can also be something that you don't want to get stuck thinking about the future all the time because you're not going to enjoy the present at all. And I do think it's also important to reflect on the past. But I think because we are both so futuristic, that's something we've had to work at to make sure that we're doing those things as well.
Yeah. I mean, and the one thing that you said there is that, so with vision, sometimes being futuristic as a strength, you can cast a vision and other people can buy into that vision. And sometimes that vision doesn't work out the way that you've casted it. So then people end up not liking you because you casted that vision. So that can be kind of a detrimental thing. But if it ends up working out, you can be a hero too. So, it's a double-edged sword on that. And I know that for me as well is that one thing that Ashley kind of said is that, you can actually spend so much time focused on the future because you get so fascinated with it. Because I know that for me, I love to read about stuff that's being built or made, right? That could be coming out in the next 10 years or whatever. I get wrapped up in some of that stuff. I'm like, man, it's awesome. I get excited about it and end up talking about it. And, before I realize it, I've wasted 3 hours of my life that I'm not going to get back. And, because I got so super excited about something that isn't even here yet, which is good that I'm aware, but it's also bad that I'm not focused in the present as well, because, being present is one of the most important things you can do in making sure that you capitalize on today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, with this, I know we're talking about some of the downsides of strengths to the extreme, but it is really important to know your gifts and strengths. I feel like that is, like we said in the beginning, that is the best gift of all that you can give yourself, because if you don't know what your strengths and talents are, you might be in a really bad spot, or you might be just really depressed and lost, and not know, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And it is important, to know those things about you. I feel like that's, that is one of the best gifts of all that you can give yourself, is the knowledge, the self-awareness, of what you're good at, and to use those. And I feel like, people are wanting you to live out your strengths. And it's not about people pleasing, but it's the fact that you have a lot to contribute to the world. And by living out your strengths and gifts, I feel like that's a way that you can do that.
I feel like once I found out these gifts, strengths, and talents, I actually ended up being able to apply them every single day in my life. And then it kind of let me help develop them into more of a strength and more just pleasure in my everyday life. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is that like for me, being strategic, I never understood why I could see things that were complex and they were very simple to me. I never understood why people couldn't see it or understand it, but that's a strength of mine. I know how it's going to fall usually before it falls. And I don't, it's something I always naturally look at, and I'm like, how can you not see this? I'm so frustrated. Why can't you see it? But it's also helped me been able to excel in certain areas in my life, especially with being a management in an upper management. I mean, it helps me be able to help other people. So it's actually a huge advantage to me. And it's something that came naturally. But once I found out that it was my natural strength, then I got to develop it more and be able to walk that out more and be able to help more people, because I can notice certain things even within what everybody else is doing around me. So now I can strategically walk that out with them and help them kind of be better at their everyday life as well, without really crossing that boundary that we kind of what we talk about normally. Because some people, when you point that out, they're like, yeah. But if you can communicate it properly, then everything changes.
I saw what you did there too. You said I can strategically help, and strategic is one of your strengths. So good job, Matt. I want to read a little bit about, so one of my strengths is actually, my number one strength is responsibility. And just to give you an idea of kind of what this book, if you do get Strength Finders 2.0, which we highly recommend if you don't know your strengths, just kind of how they lay out each one. So you read a little bit about strengths in general, and then it's got the back section has all the different strengths that, depending on your top 5, you read, whichever ones you got. And so for responsibility, it's got, a paragraph about it. And then it says, responsibility sounds like this. And then it's got ideas for action. And then it also has, working with others who have responsibility. So maybe your kids have different strengths than you do, and you want to know, how to better be with them, that you can read those, and that's going to give you some insight as well. And just to read part of responsibility. So the beginning says, your responsibility theme forces you to take psychological ownership for anything you commit to, whether large or small. You feel emotionally bound to follow it through to completion. Your good name depends on it. If for some reason you cannot deliver, you automatically look for ways to make it up to the other person. Apologies are not enough. Excuses and rationalizations are totally unacceptable. You will not quite be able to live with yourself until you have made restitution. This consciousness, the near obsession for doing things right, and your impeccable ethics combine to create your reputation. Utterly dependable. When assigning new responsibilities, people will look at you first because they know you will get it done. When people come to you for help, and they soon will, you must be selective. Your willingness to volunteer may sometimes lead you to take on more than you should. So I feel like this paragraph is my life. I feel like somebody just snuck in and watched me and wrote all of this. So you should feel that when you take the test and when you see what your strengths are and read about them, it should be like, oh man, wow, that's me. Whether it's good or bad, because some stuff in there was not good. And some stuff was. So it should hit you like, yeah, that's wow. Is somebody watching me with a camera? Because that's totally me. So that's why it's another reason it's so important to know your strengths and talents. I feel like the more you can know about yourself, the better person you can become. And just I feel like it even brings about peace, to operate out of your strengths, because you're doing something that's true to you. And that feels good. That feels good to do that. And I feel like even our business, Own Your Life, like that goes with what I just read with responsibility. We don't, at least for me, I don't accept excuses for myself. Like, I don't care if I don't feel like doing something I need to do. I'm going to get up and do it because that's what I committed to. And I just like, there is no negotiation with that, but that's one of my strengths. And I understand not everybody has that. So that's also something to realize, is to not be frustrated with other people that do not have your strengths, especially if it's a spouse or a family member or a child or a coworker or even a boss, that maybe, you feel like they don't understand you, because why don't they, have the same perspective? So that's also an important thing to keep in mind, is that yes, you have your strengths and they have theirs, and to respect each other's strengths. Now I know Matt and I have some of the same ones, but we can operate differently out of those, even though we have the same strengths.
Yeah. Like, I don't have the strength of responsibility. Not that my responsibility is very low, because I take responsibility for a lot of stuff. Don't get me wrong, but Ashley's level of responsibility, because it's her strength, is kind of amazing to watch at times, because like she has with the responsibility, the completion factor of responsibility. And the completion factor is amazing combined with a few of her other strengths, because like, for instance, with our business, watching her do certain things with websites, with certain advertising, with the podcast, with whatever, the completion factor is amazing because she actually is able to perfect it in a way that I never could, because that's her strength. She has that responsibility and completion strength. And I feel like whenever I see her operate inside of her like gifts, strengths, and talents, it amazes me because I pay attention to it more, because I know how gifted she is in certain areas that I'm not. And it just fascinates me whenever you can really sit back and watch somebody operate in their gifts, strengths, and talents. It's amazing to watch. And it's almost, like watching, if we were able to watch Picasso paint, or if we were able to, you can go back and watch Joe Montana throw a pass, or Michael Jordan play a basketball game. I mean, those are people operating at their highest levels of strengths. But when you can see it on a day-to-day basis, when you can really pay attention and see that in other people, it kind of changes your life in multiple areas of your life, because you're like, man, if they're that good, what does it look like for them to look at me and operate out of my gifts, strengths, and talents? Does it amaze them like it amazes me?
No, that's awesome, babe. And thank you for that. And it's funny because sometimes, we don't see certain things as gifts and strengths because that's just how we are. So we might not even know, you might not even know what they are just because you're so used to yourself and you can't see what you're good at. And you might be thinking for someone else, like, why don't they get it? I don't understand. Like, you just do this, this, and this. Like, why don't they think this way? Because that's your strength. That is something that you're really good at that maybe somebody else doesn't have that same strength, but you don't know it because you're living that every day. So that's another aspect of it. And like I was saying before, I feel like even though Matt and I both have futuristic, that his futuristic is different than mine. And sometimes when I'm feeling like maybe I can't plan well or need help with decisions, like I am looking to him for his futuristic strength and what he feels about the situation, because it could be a totally different take than I would have, even though we have the same strength.
Yeah. I mean, and I know that for us as relators, we relate differently a lot, even though that's a shared strength. For me, like as a relator, if the relationship isn't genuine, I really don't want to pursue that relationship, and because like I think that there's some people that are relators that it's okay if it's just a surface level relationship, but for me, I have to have it to be genuine, and it has to be a longer lasting relationship, which causes me to kind of revert back a little bit to people that I've shared past experiences with sometimes that's not great because we've changed so much, or they've changed so much that it's not the same relationship, but I expect it to be. So that can kind of be a double-edged sword, but at the same time, the relationships I do have are so genuine and they mean so much to me that I love to connect with those people and to really walk out those relationships because that's what I enjoy. So, I mean, that's a part of relator, but I mean, your relator is a little different than mine too in certain areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like these develop and change over time. I feel like some of my relator, and this was before I did like a bunch of, personal growth and development, that I was hanging on to relationships maybe I shouldn't have because of how comfortable it was. And, the intimacy was already there with that person. And I didn't see the damaging parts of the relationship. So I didn't want to end it. And it wasn't until I was, growing myself more that I was able to see that and realize that even though it might have been comfortable, it was not serving me. It wasn't really good for either party to keep that relationship going. So that's a way that I operated out of it in the past. But now, that I know what I know, it's evolved, and that's okay. Your gifts and strengths are going to evolve over time. They don't have to be the same. And I would go to say they probably shouldn't be the same over years and years. I think they should, change and develop with, whatever you're going through.
Yeah. And for the last one, the focus, for me, focus is really something that I utilize every day. And I know that for me, it's been, it's actually funny because like some people are like, oh man, yeah, you have an ability to extreme focus, kind of. Because for me, like one of the things that I kind of wrote down here, is it forces me to be efficient when I don't want to be efficient. So like it's good in that aspect of it. But on the flip side of that, it causes me to be very impatient with certain things because I'm so focused on getting maybe the task or to get to completion or to drag people along with me on this journey. It causes me to be very impatient, and it causes me to ask questions that maybe are detrimental to some relationships as well. So, I mean, I love the strength of being focused, but for me to cause so much impatience around that is, kind of one of those things that's like a double-edged sword for me. But I know that focus really has drove me through a lot of areas in my life that has led me to win in multiple areas along the way. So, I mean, I'm thankful because I have that strength, but it's also something that I've been very cautious at developing because I want to make sure that I develop in the right area, not in the wrong.
Yeah, that's awesome, babe. For sure. Definitely good self-awareness. I just think that's just so important to know, the good and the bad of your strengths. And I also feel like to know that some of your strengths can be hindered by other ones that you have. My last one is input. And a lot of that has to do with, collecting information. I feel like there's certain topics that I just want to learn more and more and more about. And I want to be like an expert in, and I input so much information. And sometimes I can get overloaded because I've got too much going on in my brain because I just want to keep learning or doing more. I feel like this is, I'm very task oriented, and I feel like that's also been a little detrimental in that I just want to keep doing more and more and more because I feel like, the more I do, the better I become. And that's not necessarily the case. And that sometimes the input can be way too high to where I can't handle it anymore. And it's going to affect other strengths of mine because I won't be able to take responsibility for everything if I put too much on my plate to begin with. So I think that that's, something also to be mindful of. And also with the input, some of it is not just being a collector of information, but maybe being a collector of things or having a hard time getting rid of things. And sometimes that is me. It's almost like I have to be in the mood to get rid of stuff, depending on whatever it is, whether it's clothing or just items, that I need to be in the right mindset for that. Because otherwise I'm going to form some kind of an attachment or something of why I need to keep that for, I might need it for XYZ if this happens, and that may never happen. But that's definitely one thing that I've had to, be aware of and get in the right mindset if it is, something that I'm needing to get rid of because I value input so much that getting rid of input is something that, I struggle with. And in closing, I just want to leave you guys with, the world and those around you might be missing out on the gifts and strengths that only you have. And it's really important to know those and to develop those. I feel like you'll miss a large chunk of your life if you go without knowing that. So please check out StrengthsFinders 2.0 if you have not already. And give yourself the best gift of all by knowing your gifts, strengths, and talents. We know this is coming out 2 days before Christmas, so Merry Christmas to all of you. We hope you have a safe and happy holiday. And if you like this message, please share, subscribe, rate, and review us. And until next time, own your life because your life is your responsibility. Thank you all for listening. If this added value to you, please click subscribe and rate and review us. You can also find us at Own Your Life Co. on Instagram and Facebook and ownyourlifeco.com. And as always, own your life because your life is your responsibility.